recorded and so this meeting is being recorded and the link is going to be posted on the 14th Ward Facebook page. And the link to the recording for the Barbara Daly Danko Political Forum this past Sunday is going to be posted on the Ward Facebook page as well. And the link was included in the email that I sent out reminding you about this meeting. I would like everybody to please welcome our new committee members. We have 7 new committee members from the 14th Ward Democratic Committee, and this is going to be their first meeting they're joining us with. This Saturday, I wanted to invite everybody to please come over to my house between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. We'll have bagels and coffee, and it'll be a chance to sign petitions for candidates and also take petitions that you would like to circulate for candidates. They need tons and tons of signatures to get on the ballot, and we really need to help them have enough signatures so that all of our candidates can be on the ballot. The Allegheny County Democratic Committee meeting is February 11th. That's a Sunday. It's going to be from 10 to 3 at the Pittsburgh Federation of Teachers Union Hall. I'll be sending out the address again. It's on 19th Street on the south side. Voting is in person only. So you have to come between 10 and 3 to be able to vote. And this is one of our most important responsibilities as committee members, is to make sure that we're there to vote to endorse Democratic candidates of your choosing. For this meeting and our meeting next Wednesday evening, we have 2 meetings kind of back to back each Wednesday night, is designed to help you learn more about the candidates and to help you become familiar with the candidates. I sent you links in the email that you got Monday, I think. It has links to their websites for each of the candidates who are going to speak tonight, and any candidate who sent us any additional materials, I included those as well. So listen carefully to the issues when candidates are speaking tonight. And then after tonight, do your homework. If you have issues that aren't touched on or you want to understand in more depth, then please reach out. Can I ask everybody, if you're not speaking, to please mute your, could everybody please mute yourself if you're not speaking? Tonight, the plan is candidates are going to have 3 minutes to speak, and then we'll take questions from people on the meeting tonight. And each candidate will have a total of 10 minutes. So I ask, when you ask your question, don't give us all the background on the question because you're going to use up all their time. Try and ask your question as succinctly as you can and give them more time to answer the question. So tonight we're going to have candidates from the Pennsylvania Senate 43rd District, from the Pennsylvania House 23rd District, and the 23rd District represents the ward districts 1 through 11 and 19 through 41 in the 14th Ward. Next week, we'll have the candidates for the Pennsylvania House District 34, and that representative represents the districts 12 through 18 in the 14th Ward. And tonight we also have candidates for the Pennsylvania Attorney General race. The state Democratic Party does the endorsement in statewide races. So they've already met to consider endorsement for the Attorney General, but no candidate got the required 2/3 of all the votes cast. So there is no endorsement from the state party in the Attorney General's race. So it's really kind of a wide open race. And so I really hope you're all going to listen carefully. But the Pennsylvania Democratic Committee endorses for Attorney General, for Treasurer, and Auditor General. So you won't see those 3 races on your ballot when you vote in the Allegheny County Democratic Committee endorsement. Those are done by the state committee. But next week we'll hear the candidates for those other races, because I think we need to know who they are so that we can talk to people about them and also help get them on the ballot. Before we begin to ask questions of the candidates during the meeting, I think the best way to do it, since we have a fairly large number of people, is going to be to raise your hand electronically. And Marie is going to give you a quick tutorial if you're not familiar with how to do that, on just how to do that.
Yeah, two ways you can ask questions. You can either write them into the chat, or you can raise your hand by just going on the bottom strip of your Zoom screen. You should see reactions. If you click on reactions, you'll have an opportunity to, what do we get here? Raise your hands. You can also clap or give a thumbs up.
Can you show people what it looks like?
I don't think I can, but if you, I mean,
Oh,
yeah, I'm not
okay.
sure I have any way to do that.
Here, I'm going to the reaction button. If everybody looks on the bottom, you see it? I see some hands up. Excellent. Okay, so you can just put your hand up. It says
Yeah.
raise hand. And then after you speak.
Everybody raise their hands. We'll see if
everybody.
Anybody is not able to do that.
Okay.
Look at those hands go up.
And then once you do that, it stays there and you can just click lower your hand. Got it? Everybody got it? Okay, everybody can lower their hands now. Okay. So please mute yourself when you're not asking a question. So everybody should be muted pretty much except for the candidates during most of the meeting. Our first candidate up to speak is State Senator Jay Costa from the 43rd Senatorial District, and he represents the entire 14th Ward, and he's running unopposed. You have a letter I sent that Jay had sent out, and you also have his website. So Jay, welcome. I believe I saw Jay.
Yep.
There he is. Okay. Oh, can I suggest one more thing people might want to do? You can go up to the top of your screen where it says view. And if you click on view, you can click on speaker, and then you'll just see the candidate speaking. That might be helpful. Go ahead, Jay. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you very much, Liz, and thank the 14th Ward Democratic Committee for allowing me the opportunity to present myself and ask for the continued support of this committee. I think as many of you know, I spent a good bit of my life in the 14th Ward for about more than 25 years. My family and I lived there. We now reside out in Forest Hills for a number of years now, and part of the district, and I get to represent about half of the city of Pittsburgh as part of our 43rd district. By way of background, as I mentioned, born and raised in Pittsburgh. I am a lawyer by trade, working in a firm in Pittsburgh, and I serve currently as what's called the Democratic leader in the Senate, the floor leader, and I've done that the last 12 years. My colleagues have elected me to serve in that capacity, to represent them on policy issues, represent them on budgetary matters, and working closely with whether it be the governor's office or our colleagues over in the House Democratic Caucus, but also back in the community as well, representing their interests along those lines. It's a position that I've been very blessed to be able to serve in, and allow me the opportunity to be part of the conversation on a lot of policy matters, particularly over the last 8 years with Governor Wolf, and a lot of budgetary matters as well, as I mentioned. Some of the areas that we've worked closely on, addressing some of the major issues that we've talked about here in Harrisburg and in Pittsburgh and Harrisburg as well. We've done a lot of work on defense, as the House had done for a number of years, defending against some of the obnoxious things that our Republican colleagues had advanced, whether it be limitations on abortion rights, whether it be things they tried to change with respect to our democracy and changing our electoral things, whether it's things they wanted to do in the environmental space, things we had to vote on to ensure that we preserve the things that Governor Wolf was advancing. Our goal is to be able to move forward and pick up 3 additional seats. Right now, it is a 28-22 Republican majority, and to be able to advance the things that the House Democrats have sent over to us this past year, we need to be able to win 3 seats where we feel we have a great opportunity in Erie, Allegheny County, and in Dauphin County. If we get there, we'd be able to advance many of the measures that they're sent to us. As I mentioned to you, some of the ones related to, for example, gun reform measures, simple common sense things that we should be doing. We can't get a vote. In fact, all of our measures get tabled along those lines, whether it be issues with respect to the environment or economic development, some of the things in terms of the LGBTQ community, the things that Republicans have advanced with book bans and transgender issues in terms of who can participate in various places. All those type of things are things that we deal with on a regular basis and fight back to ensure that we don't let them get to the House or we provide negative votes for that. I want to go back to Harrisburg and continue to work that I've been able to do working with Governor Shapiro this past year and our House Democrats to be able to advance the measures that we think are important as a caucus and as Democrats across the board, including education funding, including looking at issues like the minimum wage, ensure we increase that, environmental protection issues, social justice issues, all those type of things I think are warranted right now for us to be able to continue. And it looks like my 3 minutes are up, Liz. So I will take questions at this moment in time.
Thanks, Jay. Marie's going to be looking for raised hands, so if you want to
Okay.
raise your hand.
I have a question, Senator
Sure.
Costa. You said that we're looking to flip 3 Senate seats.
Correct.
What's our best opportunity to do that?
Our best opportunity is in Dauphin County. Patty Kim, Representative Patty Kim, a very outstanding House member who is our candidate there. That district now, we were able to, in redistricting, flip it from about a 47% district to about a 53% performing Democratic district. Patty's an outstanding candidate. So I'm sure Dan can speak to that as well, having served with her. So we're excited about that opportunity. The second best option is up in Erie, where we have another 53 or 54% performing district, but we have an incumbent up there. The Dauphin County seat is an open seat, whereas in Erie County, we're running against an incumbent, Representative Dan Laughlin. Again, a good district there for us. I mean, our judicial candidates, particularly Jill Beck and Tamika Lane and Joyce, all did very, very well there. And certainly Governor Shapiro and Senator Fenderman had done very well there as well over 54, 55%. So we think there's a primary that's taking place right now. One of the Democratic candidates, a guy named Jim Wirtz, Democratic Party chair, and also a young woman, Selena King, who works for Senator Fetterman. Those are the 2 primary candidates, but in either case, I think we have a great opportunity. Our downside is that we have a Republican who's liked by Democrats, and we have to fight that challenge as well. The third seat we have is in Allegheny County, held by Senator Devlin Robinson. We have a woman by the name of Nicole Rosito from the Lower Mon Valley, who's our candidate. It's going to be outstanding, an educator, and someone who's very active in her community, has a long history among working in the Democratic Party, her and her family. We think presents a nice option, a nice contrast to Devlin Robinson. You know, many of the issues that Devlin Robinson, he may tell folks back in the district, but 6 times he voted for school choice, voted against investing in public education. He's been one of the folks who supported Senate Bill 106, when it was a constitutional amendment to ban abortions in Pennsylvania. These are just examples of some of the things, and certainly voted in support of the, banning the books in our school libraries, and also Don't Say Gay, those type of measures that he supported. So we think we have an opportunity there. That is a 50-50 district, and we feel that we need to be engaged in that district as we go forward, and knowing how things may or may not play out in the fall. If we're not engaged now, we won't have the opportunity to do that. If we get to that end and we get to 25, we'll have the Lieutenant Governor who will break the tie. We'll give Senate Democrats the majority, and then working closely with our House Democrats, who we anticipate maintaining the majority in the House, be able to advance the things that they have done and get them to the governor's desk. We can't do that right now. Every time we bring up amendments or bring up measures that we want to talk about, they quickly table our motions or table our things we try to do, whether it be through amendments and the like. And it's frustrating that that's the case, and it frustrates our members. And the only way we can get these measures home is by having a Democratic Senate. And that's what we think we're going to be able to flip those 3 seats to do that.
And you said that's Kim, Laughlin, and Rosito? Or is Laughlin the incumbent?
Yeah. The incumbent is Robinson here. So Robinson's the incumbent in Allegheny in District 37, was held formerly by Pam Ivino. Dan Laughlin's up in Erie. Okay. Probably end up candidates likely to be Jim Wirtz, who's the former county chairperson, has worked very hard. And then in the South, in Dauphin County, we have a race there. We also have a race, an open seat in the 45th district. It's a Democratic with Senator Jim Brewster's districts, primarily in Mon Valley and eastern suburbs. And that particular race, I got rid of the Westmoreland County part of it. We lost Westmoreland County by 6,000 votes. Jim ended up winning by 76. We kind of kept the Westmoreland piece out, gave more Democratic areas. That's now about a 57, 58% performing Democratic district. And we anticipate doing well there to hold that seat. But that's one of the seats Republicans will be going after. The good thing is we are playing offense. I think we only have 1 or 2 defensive seats we have to protect. And they're not even serious challenges in those races. So we're on the offense this time, which I think is a lot different than where we were 2 years ago.
Jay, we have a question in the chat from Katie Ranklev. Her question is, just want to thank Senator Costa for speaking up about public education funding and common sense gun reform.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I appreciate that. And those are areas that I prioritize, particularly the public education side of stuff. And, I was not a participant in the task force that addressed the constitutional nature of the case that came out with the recommendations on the adequacy side. But I support what came from the committee. I support what the governor's going to be able to do. Our hope is that we're able to get Republicans to support what we need in this first year with respect to the adequacy numbers. Also, there's a part of that is going to be tax equalization or tax equity. If we get there, we still have some things we have to work on because the city of Pittsburgh is not a winner at all in any of these measures, in either the adequacy column or in the tax equity column. So we have more work to do to figure that out. But on the gun safety stuff, I mean, to me, I just can't figure out how we can't get things like the red flags or the emergency risk protection orders. So why can't get universal background checks? The work that Dan has done in many other spaces in terms of lost and stolen. To me, these are things that the public wants us to do across the board. And yet we can't, every time we bring it up for an amendment or to try to amend any Title 18 bill, it gets tabled. Anytime we do discharge petitions, was the process which we're allowed to do that, they table our discharge petitions. And it's always along party lines. I mean, our caucus is unified in terms of wanting to move these measures forward. And that's one of the things I pride myself on, bringing our caucus to many of these spaces where we're in unity in terms of things that we want to be able to get done.
If we've got time, I saw Marty Mark's hand was up earlier. Do you still have a question, Marty? Maybe. Okay.
No. He answered my question. I was just going to ask about the Brewster seat, and
Wonderful.
Jay, of course, is always on top of things.
As always.
Yeah, we have a great
Smith
candidate in Nick Piscatano, a House member who's outstanding, has worked hard. He serves as a delegation chairperson for Allegheny County. It's great for me to be able to reach down and steal good quality people from the House Democrats. So we've been able to do that on 2 occasions so far, and we're very fortunate in that regard to have a candidate like Nick, and he'll be very successful. Even though Republicans are, going to put $1 million into that race, we're told by folks, we think we're going to be fine working forward and moving forward with Nick.
Jay,
Thanks so much, Shay.
Oh, is there time? We have one more question. No time?
Well, we've run out of time.
Okay.
Can I suggest that you send your question directly to Jay? Because we've got a lot to get through tonight. Jay, I really appreciate it. I don't know that you've been put on the stump so much since you've been in the House for so long, but I'm in the Senate, but I really appreciate your doing this tonight. Our next
happy to do so. Thank you very much. Have a good evening,
we
everyone.
appreciate your support. You have been
Thank you. Well, and I'm going to run down to the pit Dems now. So thank you all very much.
Okay.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, Jay. Okay. Our next candidate tonight is Representative Dan Frankel. Dan is from the 23rd District and he's running unopposed. Dan, you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep. Thanks, Dan.
Well, thank you all for all that you've done for me over 25 years of being in the State House. I'm very appreciative of the support I've received in the past, and I look forward, hopefully, to having your support as we move forward in this election cycle. It's been really a revolution. I've waited for a very long time to be in a position to have an opportunity to help set the agenda. Having been in the minority for most of my career, we're now in the majority in the Pennsylvania House, thanks to so much of the work that so many of you have done, not just for me, because this has been a safe seat, but I think you've all recognized the fact that we've had to work beyond the borders of my 23rd District in the 14th Ward in order to affect the change that we have seen. So here in southwestern Pennsylvania, we flipped 2 seats with your work, and we elected Mandy Steele and Arvin Venkat that were part of making us the majority with 1 vote, 102 to 101. It's narrow, but you can see the results that your work and your support have led to. So in the House, at least, and we know what the challenges of the Senate has, but you've seen us advance in an agenda often with Republican votes. We've moved over 4 gun safety bills over to the state Senate. We have moved over legislation that I've been working on for years, along with now others who identify with the LGBTQ community. I had been introducing the Equality, the Fairness Act for years and years and years. And finally, we had that debate on the House floor and moved that piece of legislation, passed it out of the House and over to the Senate. It's still waiting there to be voted on. In addition, after Tree of Life, Senator Costa and I worked together to put together a package of bills that addressed hate crimes in Pennsylvania that had not been addressed in 40 years. A package of 3 bills that we moved out of the House and moved over to the Senate. That I have some hope they are inclusive bills. They include hate crimes against the LGBTQ plus community and the disability community have never been protected in the past. So we've made an enormous amount of progress here, but as Jay said, we still need to work to help him and Senate Democrats elect Democrats to those seats that will support these bills. I'm not raising the white flag here. I think that we have an opportunity still, even with Republican support, to get some of these things done. I have the opportunity now to chair be the majority chair of the House Health Committee. And for the last 4 years as the minority chair of that committee, I have had to deal with bill after bill that seeks to ban abortions, that seeks to put restrictions on abortion providers, that seeks to penalize trans children, that seeks to basically demonize, agreed to, understood, scientifically proven medicine like vaccines. And last January, after you guys elected us into the majority, that stuff stopped in the Pennsylvania House. And that is a significant thing that took place. And now we are actually, in my committee and throughout the Pennsylvania House, addressing issues that really affect the lives of Pennsylvanians. So
Dan?
it is really, okay.
Can we move to questions? Are there
Sure.
questions for Dan? Well, people are getting there. I see Marty Marks has his hand up.
Yes, and Dan, thank you for the great work that you always do. It's most appreciated. I have a couple of questions, real quick. One is, whatever with the narrow majority that we have, what are our chances of expanding the majority? Do we look like we can do that in this cycle, and where will that happen? And secondly, as we've been great on defense, but on the issues around abortion, I don't think that we've moved a single bill out of the House on abortion this session. And why is that? Or am I wrong? Have we actually made some progress there, other than stopping the crap that was coming at us
Sure.
the last 2 years? Which God bless you for that.
Thanks, Marty. I think you'll see that take place. So we know that we have a firewall, but I think in order to advance and put this issue into debate that has clearly been a major issue that advantages Democrats across the country, and we see popular support in red states as well as like Ohio and Kansas and referendums, that you'll see in my committee that we will be advancing bills that advance abortion access in Pennsylvania. So I expect that to happen before November this year. As we take a look at our prospects of expanding our majority, there are enormous number of opportunities, and including 2 that I will identify here in Allegheny County. We have 2 great candidates in Republican seats in Allegheny County that are flippable. And we've done it in the past. So Hadley Haas, who, and I can't remember the district number, but she's running against Valerie Gatos. She has been an active advocate for work in the gun violence arena with ceasefire. We have Bill Petula, who is running in the seat that was formerly, I think, based on reapportionment, had been part of Mike Turzai's district up there. That's Rob McCurry's district now, who's running for Congress, another seat we need to make sure that our Representative Congressman DeLuzio retains, another piece of important work that this committee is going to be involved in. So we have great prospects here in Western Pennsylvania. We have to make sure that we support those individuals like Arvin Benkamp and Mandy Steele that flipped seats here last time and protect those seats. I'm very optimistic they will be able to do that. Those are two extraordinary members to our caucus that have done incredible work and worked really hard. And I look forward to making sure that they come back as well. So I'm really optimistic that we will be able not only to retain the majority, but expand the majority, which will give us a lot more flexibility. And I just want to make one last pitch. Whatever we can do to make Jay Costa the majority leader in the state Senate is extraordinarily important because all the work we do and all the things, great things that we'll be able to pass in that House, we need Democrats in the state Senate.
Dan, you've got one more question here. So TK asks, will funding for Pittsburgh Public Schools be competing from the pot of money for HB 1461, which includes funding for universities, or will it stand alone?
I think that this is a higher ed piece, or you're talking about Pittsburgh Public Schools?
Yeah, will Pittsburgh Public Schools, and TK jump in here anywhere, but will the funding for Pittsburgh Public Schools be its own pot of money, or is it going to be competing with the same pot of money, you know?
It's always kind of competing. And, you know, I think one of the things that I think is of concern is under this, this fair funding formula, Pittsburgh, when you take a look at the numbers on a per pupil basis, has a very high level of funding. And we know that we are still very stressed with our local school district in terms of the resources that we're able to get, and we look down the road at what is looming to be a deficit for Pittsburgh Public Schools. So one of the things that we need to have as we move forward is to make sure that there is a hold harmless against the Pittsburgh Public School District, and an opportunity to garner some more resources as well as we go through this process. It's complicated. It's difficult for us, but it's going to be challenging, I think, working with Senator Costa and the rest of our delegation to make sure that Pittsburgh gets its fair share as we move forward through this reform that is looming in front of us.
Thanks so much, Dan. We appreciate it. Dan has been another great supporter of the 14th Ward. During the 4 years ago, during the presidential election, we were doing everything we could to stand on our heads to make sure everybody got to the polls. And Jay and Dan were really helpful with postage and some other ways to make sure we reached everybody. So thank you so much.
Yeah, and just as I said, we would really, Jay and I and everybody else would really appreciate your help with our signatures. It's a huge issue for us, and any help you can lend. Thank you, Liz, for doing this, and look forward to seeing you guys over the weekend.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Now we're going to move on to the Attorney General candidates. And our first candidate is Keir Bradford-Grey. And I believe Keir is on the meeting.
I'm here.
Joined us. There you are. Okay. So Keir, you have 3 minutes to speak. And then with questions, you have a total of 10 minutes time. I'll let you know how you're doing. Okay.
Thank you so much. Well,
Thanks,
good evening.
Keir.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I really do appreciate you taking the time to meet me. My name is Keir Bradford-Grey, and I am running to become Attorney General. I am running because I'm fighting for families like mine. I want to use this role and all its opportunities to protect people, not just from criminal enterprise and public safety, but also protecting for valuable rights, as well as access to valuable and important services that help improve the quality of people's lives. I know what this role has the responsibility and the ability to do. While it looks at protecting people in the realm of public safety, it not only looks at what's happening on the street corner, but also what's happening in the boardroom. The role of the Attorney General can look at business enterprises as it relates to gun violence, making sure that those who are in the business of illegal gun distribution are paying their fair share and held accountable. I, for one, as the leader of the 4th largest criminal defense firm in the nation, not only understands how crime occurs, but why it occurs. And I will use all of my insight and foresight to make sure that we go after the right threats that are attacking families where they are, and the decisions that I make to go after people will be fair and final, because I have the ability and credibility to bring only the people into this system who need to be, and not anyone who doesn't. I also know there are other threats and other people that need to be held accountable for the harms and the crimes that they commit against people as they steal money out of our pockets, food off of our tables, and roofs from over our heads. There are a lot of people that have their fair share in the desperation of what they see. And I, for one, understand what that means. Coming from 2 union-proud parents who fought systems just to make sure that they had access to the things that would give me a better opportunity than they had for themselves. My dad fought the healthcare system and failed because we were not sophisticated enough or well-resourced to fight that system to get the care that he needed. My mom, who was a parole officer, was fired and discriminated against. And it wasn't until a lawyer fought for her, got her job back. Racial discrimination was exposed in the 80s. And that's the time I saw how well the law can be used to protect families like mine. It left a profound impact on me. And I decided when I got a chance to not only go to college, but to law school, I would use my law degree to make sure that I fought for people for fundamental fairness against well-resourced systems. I was a public defender in both state and federal practices. And my success in those areas shows that I have what it takes to go against more powerful and well-resourced institutions. I also was a leader of these defender organizations. I led where Josh Shapiro appointed me to be the chief defender of Montgomery County. There we created a system that was responsive to the needs of the community. We created initiatives that brought people into the decision-making, and so that the decisions that we made were fair and balanced, and the initiatives are still going and growing today. Lastly, I was the defender of like I said before, the 4th largest criminal defense law firm in the nation, in the largest county, with deeply rooted complex issues. I had a front row seat to the drivers of public safety and some of the profiles that happened with people that were coming in front of me that had disinvestments in terms of not having housing stability, not having the stability of having a primary care physician that could diagnose learning disabilities. There are a lot of root causes that can be addressed through the Attorney General's office, that I want to use that role to invite more people into protections. I have the ability to be a effective collaborator. I not only collaborated with community, I collaborated with elected officials, both state and local, and I partnered with the NFL to bring much needed resources to the initiatives that we were creating with community involved. My collaboration with community empowered them to continue to grow and create a fair and just and balanced justice system. I am now.
Thank you.
All right.
Can we go
Thank
on
you.
and see if there are questions? It takes people a minute or two to get their hands up. So if you want to finish your thought while people are getting their hands up, then
Yes.
go ahead.
I just want to say I'm now a partner at a law firm where I focus my practice on government investigations and representing women across the state. I not only want to represent women in their fight for reproductive rights, but I am reproductive rights, and I'm putting a face to what it looks like to fight for rights that have been taken away. That's so I'm looking to be, I'm sorry, I paused.
No, that's okay. I have a question for you.
Yes.
I also am concerned about white collar crime, that people, oh, I don't know. I feel like people often get a slap on the hand for white collar crime. And in fact, some of those corporate and other crimes affect many, many people broadly. What do you view the role of the Pennsylvania Attorney General in those cases?
Oh, I believe that's what the Attorney General's strong point is, looking at organized crime, crime that occurs that's more sophisticated, well-resourced, and powerful, that often preys on vulnerables. Those white collar people never pay their fair share of the harms they create. And that is who I'm going to look at, because that's what I've seen, not only in my personal life, but also my professional career. I've understood the impact that white collar crime has had on communities and families. And I want to make sure that I'm going after the people that harm families, either financially or by discriminatorily not allowing them to have access to basic services that they need.
I think I have a question. So we're seeing attorneys general all over the country, you know, really standing up against authoritarianism and, but taking a lot of heat for it. And I guess I'm wondering, how can we sort of protect the independent role of an attorney general and, you know, from political influence, and you know, the kind of retaliation we're seeing?
Look, I don't think you can ever protect anyone from retaliation, but you need someone who's going to be fearless and courageous. I know for me, I am doing this because I want this role for the right reasons. I'm not thinking about my next move. This is the only role that I've ever sought to run for political office for. And that's because I understand the opportunities of this role to protect people like myself, like my daughter. I will do what's necessary for people, as I've done as a public defender. I used my law degree in the public defender space. My role wasn't valued. It wasn't always lauded. But you know what? I did it anyway because it was necessary. And I will do the same for people all across the Commonwealth, no matter who I come up against, because that's what I've always done. I don't have to just tell you, that's what I've been. And there's a docuseries about me doing just that, where I did the right thing for the right reason, even if it wasn't politically favorable to myself.
TK has a question. Let's see, it's in the chat. Where did it go?
Also, TK Smith, I see,
yeah, I see
has
it.
their hand raised.
I got it, Marie. I
You
got
got
it.
it? Thanks.
Yeah, appreciate you. So, Pittsburgh Public Schools has been dealing with summer citations, preferably to elementary school kids, first through fifth grade. About 89% is predominantly Black and brown kids. A lot of that 89% is Black and brown females or whatnot. What would you do? What do you think about what's taking place in Pittsburgh Public Schools with the summary citations? How would you address it?
Yeah, thank you for that question. You're asking about how I address summary citations in schools for kids that are youthful. I've addressed this before when I brought what we call youth forums to schools that had a unbalanced disciplinary process for kids that were Black and brown. I was the chief defender in Montgomery County, in the Norristown School District, was arbitrarily suspending kids who were Black kids with IEPs. We started looking at a spreadsheet. We went to the Norristown School District and offered an alternative to a disciplinary process that would be much better for kids to grow out of their behaviors so they can improve their lives and they're not hindered by criminal records. The school to prison pipeline is real. And we got most of the children who got disinterested in school once they were suspended once or twice. It only takes once to miss a certain amount of school to then get disinterested. I will bring better opportunities for disciplinary practices and infractions for kids who are in their youth and elementary age, and they need more guidance to grow out of those behaviors, not punitive measures that are going to follow them wherever they go and that are going to haunt them and really create a life of second-class citizenship. This is something that's near and dear to me because I do know I was a product of being overly disciplined in a school, in a district where I was the only person of color. I know what that feels like, and I know sometimes it can be unwarranted. And school is the setting where you need to be able to nurture more than foster punitive results, where it's necessary.
Thank you.
Here, thank you. That's our time. We're at 10 minutes, so thank you for joining us, and we appreciate it. I refer everybody back to Keir's website, and please reach out if you have questions.
Thank you, everyone. And I'm sorry again for being in the car. We're having a fundraiser, but I really appreciate the time.
No, we understand. You guys have many places to be all at the same time. Thank you so much, Keir.
Take care.
Our next candidate is Eugene DePasquale. And Eugene is on with us.
Yes. Can you hear me?
We got you. Go
Great.
ahead.
Thank you. Hey, good evening, everyone. Eugene DePasquale, and I want to be your Attorney General. For 8 years, you saw me taking on the tough investigations as your Auditor General. It was my investigation that found over 3,000 untested rape kits. We cleared that backlog, and we brought justice to victims. It was my investigation that found 58,000 unanswered phone calls to the child abuse hotline. Any single one of those calls could have been life or death for a child. But it wasn't enough for me and my team to find that problem. We traveled to every county in this state, making sure CYS workers had the tools they needed to better protect children. And also, when it came to the crisis pregnancy centers, it was my investigation that exposed them for the fraudsters they are. And Governor Shapiro recently canceled their contract, making sure pregnant women get the proper information they need. But I also offer a personal story. My dad was wounded in Vietnam, was prescribed synthetic heroin, and then ended up having a 10.5-year prison sentence because of his dealing. That's the type of experience that not everyone has in this office, but I know that seeing both sides of the criminal justice system will better prepare me to being the Attorney General. My brother Anthony, also when he was a sophomore at the University of Pittsburgh, died from complications in muscular dystrophy. Because he had that dreaded disease, our family never had health insurance. So when he passed away, the bills kept coming even after the funeral. And, you know, I was putting myself through night law school at the time. My dad had to come to the funeral in shackles. So I know what these insurance companies are capable of doing to people. And also before we had Ben, Tracy had an ectopic pregnancy. We had to make a decision, and to me, it was really no decision. We had to save Tracy. But there are now states in the country, because we made that decision, that would try to throw Tracy, myself, and the doctor in jail. Let me be very clear. If I'm your Attorney General, I will protect abortion rights, not only for the people of Pennsylvania, but for anybody that is traveling to Pennsylvania, because I view this as an absolute right. So I'm going to take that personal experience, my professional experience, and also my political experience. See, I've run statewide twice before, and I've won twice, including once when Trump was on the ballot. And I offer something that I don't think any other candidate for Attorney General in the history of Pennsylvania has been. That is a member of the Squirrel Hill Little League Hall of Fame. So I think that I offer that little unique experience, along with my experience as Auditor General and my personal experience and my political experience of winning. I really do appreciate the time, and we're all bouncing around the state right now and happy to answer any questions.
Hey, I'm
Thanks.
keeping an eye on the chat, looking for hands that are up.
Let me ask the same question that I asked here, because I'm really concerned about white collar crime. What will that priority be if you were to become the Attorney General?
Look, public safety is critical, but if you're looking for an Attorney General who's just going to be looking to throw more low-level drug offenders in prison, then I'm not your candidate. I look at this office as being a broader office and looking at protecting the public in many ways, and taking on white-collar crime is a big way to do that. Look, I've seen what these insurance companies are capable of doing to families. I've also seen what corporations can do to people, especially when it comes to scams on our seniors. So to me, this will be a high priority, which also shows that, like in 2017, I was the first statewide elected official in Pennsylvania history to call for the legalization of marijuana. We've got to move away from trying to punish some of these low-level drug offenders and hold these broader acts against the public accountable, particularly when it comes to corporate crime. So this will be a high priority of mine.
Thanks, Eugene. Marie, do you see any other questions at this point? People can also put questions in the chat if you prefer to put it in the chat as opposed to raise your hand.
I have a question for you. Jean, it seems like protecting election integrity and protecting our vote is going to be a very big piece of what the Attorney General does if things keep going the way they're going. How do you see your responsibility there, or a strategy for ensuring that those rights are protected?
First of all, like, we should not, when I say this, assuming I'm the Attorney General, you have to have a game plan going in, assuming when it comes to particular, let's be blunt, Donald Trump, he's going to come at us in every way possible. So the strategy can't be reactive. It's got to be proactive and anticipate every single move. It starts with, for example, when 2019, I did an investigation to make sure our voter registration system had all the security measures it needed, so that helped contribute. I want to be clear. It wasn't just me, but it helped contribute to making sure that our election in 2020 was secure. Similar type of initiatives need to be done to anticipate what type of cases he's going to file. And you have to make sure your team has the resources available. One of the benefits that we'll have is that we will have a Democratic governor. So I'll make sure that I'm working in collaboration with Governor Shapiro to make sure that the office has the tools they need to beat back on these legal cases. And it also means if there are lawsuits in federal court, teaming up with other states' attorney general to make sure that we're working in collaboration there as well. So it's having a strategy for federal court and state court. There is one court where Donald Trump won in 2020, and that was our Commonwealth Court. So elections matter. We did very well in the last election, but my experience as the Auditor General let me know exactly what type of cases were, because I've had cases before the Commonwealth Court. So I feel more than anyone else, I'll be better prepared to argue those cases before the Commonwealth Court. Obviously, if it goes to the Supreme Court, we're going to have to do that as well. But it starts with having a game plan going in, knowing that he gives one thing. I'll give the guy, and I can't stand him more than anybody, is that he will fight every single angle. So you can't act surprised on any of this. Whatever he can do, he will do, and we have to have a legal strategy for all of it.
Great. Marty, your hand was up, and then after you, TK.
Yeah, Eugene, I thank you for the great service you did us as Auditor General. It was outstanding.
Thank you.
As far as the campaign goes, one of the biggest challenges always is fundraising. How are you doing in that, and what do you think you need to be competitive?
Yeah, so far, because I started June 1st with zero. Some of the other candidates started because they were another elected office. So I've raised $400,000. That'll be on the report. Just shy of that in the first couple months of the campaign. Our goal is to raise $1 million total for the primary. And then with the nomination, I think the goal in the general election would be about $7 to $10 million. I raised a record amount of money when I ran for Auditor General in 2016, raised $1.5 million. And in my one congressional race, I raised $5 million. So I have no concerns about doing what it takes to raise the money to be competitive financially. And one thing, as you know, and others that know me, no one's going to outwork me. So whether it's the primary or the general, I'll go everywhere. I'll do everything. I've already put tens of thousands of miles on the car, and I'll continue to do that. Even in 2016, when everyone else was in Pittsburgh leaving the Hillary rally at Pitt and flying back to Philly, I actually got in my car and drove along Route 30 and shook hands on every diner on Route 30 to try to do my part to try to win that election. So that's the type of work ethic I'll bring. But specifically on fundraising, its goal in the primary is about 1 to 1.2 million. In the general election, it would be about 7 to 10 million.
Great. TK?
Yeah. How you doing,
Hi.
Mr. DePasquale? Okay. Are you running for auditor or attorney?
No, Attorney General.
Okay. So with your background, I did some research. You don't have too much criminal background. So how would you think you would address certain things like the Schumann Center, juvenile detention center, and things like that? And why do you feel as though that you're more qualified to do that when you've been dealing with government operations opposed to criminal background?
Yeah, my experience is very similar to the former Attorney General, now Governor Josh Shapiro, when he did this. I served on the Judiciary Committee in the legislature. I've been an attorney for 20 years. I've protected the environment as an attorney, protected consumers as an attorney. Even today, I'm helping the program for offenders, particularly women, but some men that have been previously incarcerated due to drug offenses, helping them re-enter back into society. So I have a much broader view of what this office should be. And my legal experience runs the gamut from consumer protection to environmental protection to helping people re-enter society. So that's some of the legal experience that I bring to that. I'm also a state constitutional law professor, which I think is quite relevant for this office as well. So when it comes particularly to Schumann, look, I was the one that found all the unanswered phone calls to the child abuse hotline. That led me to meeting with every CYS county department in the state of Pennsylvania, working particularly on what the tools they needed to better protect children. Some of those decisions are admittedly a county decision, but it would be my responsibility to work with the new county executive, Sarah Namarato, and her team to find out how we can collaborate to make sure our children are better protected and they have the resources they need. When I was the head of the school safety task force, I traveled to rural, suburban, and urban schools. And look, they've had a whole different view on guns, for example, particularly rural versus urban. But every single kid that I met with, they all said they need more mental health resources in our schools. And I worked tirelessly when I was the Auditor General to get those resources into the schools. That's the type of grassroots, dogged, county by county effort I believe it's needed to better protect our children, and certainly the type of leadership and energy I'll bring if I'm your Attorney General.
Thanks, Eugene. We appreciate your participation. And it's time for us to move on.
Thank you.
Thanks
Have a
so
good
much.
night, everybody.
We appreciate your joining us. Thank you. Our next candidate tonight is Jack Stollsteimer. Is it Stollsteimer or Stollsteimer?
Stollsteimer, you got it the first time, Liz.
Okay, good. Jack, you have 3 minutes to speak, and then take questions, and for a total of 10 minutes.
Sure. Well, great to see you all here in the 14th Ward, the powerful 14th Ward of Allegheny County. My name is Jack Stollsteimer, and I'm the District Attorney of Delaware County. I am uniquely qualified to be Attorney General of Pennsylvania because I'm the only Democratic candidate running who's ever been an elected prosecutor. And that gives me an insight both in how to run the office, but also it gives me the power to actually win the general election, because that's what this is really all about. The Attorney General of Pennsylvania is first and foremost the chief law enforcement officer of the Commonwealth, and I do that work with handling investigations and prosecutions every single day in Pennsylvania's 5th largest county. Let me tell you why what my record is here in Delaware County and why I think I can win this race for you. When I ran 4 years ago, I promised not only be tough on crime, to be smart on crime as well. And I've lived up to that promise, which is why I was reelected in November by an overwhelming margin. First day, I started the first environmental crimes unit in Pennsylvania. No district attorney's office had an environmental crimes unit before I started one. And I partnered with Attorney General Shapiro to hold Energy Transfer Company accountable, criminally liable, for the damage they committed in building the Mariner 2 pipeline across Pennsylvania. I also partnered with Josh Shapiro on wage theft. I'm the only candidate running in this race who's actually prosecuted wage theft in the construction industry, which is why I've been endorsed by every single building trades council, including the Building Trades Council of Greater Pittsburgh. The Teamsters and the Carpenters Union are all supporting my candidacy because I've fought as district attorney in every day of my life to protect the union way of life. I'm also the only candidate running in this race who's actually reformed a criminal justice system, When I got elected 4 years ago, Delaware County had the only privately run jail in Pennsylvania. I led the fight to deprivatize that jail, and I've reduced its population by 40%. Giving low-level offenders a chance to do their justice without getting a criminal record. I've also led the fight here in Delaware County to refocus our war on drugs into a war on addiction. I successfully sued the opioid distributors to bring millions of dollars home. And at the same time, I decriminalized personal possession of marijuana under 30 grams. Nobody's arrested for that in Delaware County anymore. The last things I really want to tell you about, and the things I'm proudest about my work here in Delaware County, are things that were really inspired by my mother. My mother came to this country as a 15-year-old Ukrainian refugee from a Nazi slave labor camp. The first place she ever lived in the free world was in the city of Chester in Delaware County. Since her time there, it became one of the most violent small cities in America. But I've used my experience as a former federal prosecutor to bring the community and police together. And over the last 4 years, I've reduced the shootings in Chester by 72%. The number of gun homicides are down by 68. That's the kind of work I want to do all across Pennsylvania. My mother also, unfortunately, she had a short time to live the American dream in this country before she died in childbirth with me. I know firsthand that women's reproductive rights is something that I'm passionate about protecting. Josh Shapiro and I both filed legal briefs together to oppose the Dobbs decision before the U.S. Supreme Court. And when that horrible decision came down, taking away women's right to abortion, I took a public pledge that I will never prosecute a woman for violating her constitutional right to abortion. I know firsthand, ladies and gentlemen, that women need the right the access to reproductive care, and the legal right to make their own decisions about their own bodies. And that's why I'm running for Attorney General, because of the work I've done gives me the opportunity to win this office over the Republican candidate, my colleague, David Sunday, who's coming from York County to spend millions of dollars talking about how Democrats are soft on crime. I'm not soft on crime, I'm smart on crime, and I can win this election for you and do this job consistent with our party's principles and values. I'm Jack Stollsteimer. I'm the District Attorney of Delaware County, and I want to be your Attorney General.
Thanks so much, Jack. Now, we have time for questions. We've been asking people to raise their hand, or you can put it in the chat. And I know it takes people a minute or two to get their hands up, so give them just a sec.
Got it.
While we're waiting, how about if I ask the question I've asked to everybody else?
Sure.
How would you prioritize white-collar crime in your time as the Attorney General?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, in the Attorney General's office, first of all, in Pennsylvania, the Attorney General and the district attorneys both share the power to prosecute state crimes. We do a lot of that white collar work here in Delaware County in the DA's offices all across Pennsylvania. The Attorney General is given the power whenever a state agency does the investigation to bring that case to court. So when state agencies are prosecuting or investigating white collar crime, I will be their prosecutor. But we work hand in glove with the Attorney General. They oftentimes have more resources, but we also, Liz, have to work with our federal partners. They really have the most resources to prosecute white collar crime. So we're going to make sure we do it in the best way possible. I mentioned wage theft. That's one of the areas that Josh Shapiro and I took on when I got elected. No other district attorney had ever prosecuted wage theft in the construction industry, even though Pennsylvania has a statute criminalizing it. 4 contractors have gone to jail or been held criminally liable in Delaware County, and I intend to prioritize that all across Pennsylvania.
Got a question. TK asks, how would you address and facilitate the reform of how our police officers engage with the public, specifically Black and brown men and women?
Yeah, great question. So in Delaware County, we've been working with our police officers to just make sure that we're training them well enough in the tactics of community policing. And that's what this is really all about. I mean, we just have to all get together and realize that police officers have to be part of the communities that they serve. So one of the things we're really struggling to do is recruit Black and brown people to become police officers. That would greatly enhance our ability to have the community trust police. But it's a conversation we need to continue to have. We do things to have interactions with the community. My work in the city of Chester is a largely Black and brown community now, but really our focus deterrent strategy, which is reduce gun homicide, is a community policing strategy. So I do things like I pay officers on overtime not to arrest anybody, but to sit in high crime areas, get out of the car, talk to the grandmoms who actually run the neighborhoods. It's having a tremendous effect. And I just think we need to be smarter in the 21st century about the way we do policing, but we also have to give our police officers every tool with the training they need. Great question.
So this question really grows out of that, and I think you partially answered it, but Leanne asks, what strategies did you employ to reduce gun violence by such significant numbers?
Love to talk to you about that. It's called focused deterrence, and it goes back to Boston ceasefire. So there's about 27 years worth of evidence that will show that this program almost always is effective. It's done with integrity. The leading advocate is a guy named David Kennedy he graduated from Swarthmore College here in Delaware County. And I learned about it as a federal prosecutor. But the heart of it is 1% of the people do 75 to 80% of the shootings in any high crime neighborhood. You have to interact with those people, tell them we're going to help you get out of that life if you let us, but we're going to stop you if you continue to do it, if you make us do it. And that's really worked. I've paid for things like guys getting CDL training, commercial driver's licenses. I'm paying for people's baby formula so they don't have to go steal and run on the streets to take care of their babies. At the same time, we've had to put people in long sentences because we're bringing cases that we needed to bring to hold these people accountable when they do have a shooting. But it almost always works, and I look forward to bringing it to every community in Pennsylvania.
Wonderful. That looks like the questions that we had. Oh, wait, hold on. Katie asks, can you say the name of the program
Sure.
again?
Sure. The strategy, the best name for it is focused deterrence, because you're focusing on a group of individuals you're trying to deter who are all in groups. It's got, the feds call it Project Safe Neighborhoods. When George Bush got elected, this was his #1 criminal justice program. But really the strategy is focused deterrence. And look up David Kennedy at the John Jay School. He's the guy who's really the guru of it. We're just thankful that, I mean, I learned about this as a federal prosecutor and did it in the Eastern District here in Pennsylvania. And I'm passionate about it. And I know we can make it work in Pittsburgh.
Thank you.
All right, then. Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate your participating, and you've given us some interesting things to think about. So thanks so much.
Thank
And,
you. I look forward to seeing you guys next time I'm out in Pittsburgh.
Sure, that would be great. Let us know when you'll be here.
You got it. Take care, guys. Have a great night.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Our next candidate for Attorney General is Jared Solomon. Do we have Jared Solomon here?
Hi, good evening.
Welcome. You have 3 minutes to speak in case you weren't on earlier. 3 minutes to speak and then a total of 10 minutes, including questions.
Excellent. Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Jared Solomon. I want to be your next Attorney General because I want to bring safe, thriving neighborhoods with opportunities for all Pennsylvanians in each of our 67 counties. I want to do this work because this is the work I'm doing in Northeast Philadelphia. I was raised in Northeast Philadelphia, above my great-grandparents' butcher shop, raised by a single mom, a public school teacher. My mom didn't have much growing up, but what she did have is an unrivaled work ethic and fight. And I watched that in her special education classroom as she unleashed opportunities for kids that folks never thought were possible. Her fight inspired me. I went on to Swarthmore College, Villanova Law. I practiced antitrust and securities law, where I took the fight to make sure we held corporations in Pennsylvania accountable to us here and not to their profit margins. I decided to go into the United States Army, served as an officer in the Army, still serving as a trial defense counsel in the National Guard. Now, when I got home, my neighborhood had changed. Crime was going up and opportunity was going down. So I channeled that fight that my mom had taught me, and I decided to run against the longest serving member of the Pennsylvania legislature, a 42-year incumbent. I said, we're going to change the narrative in the neighborhood, but we're going to do it the right way by embracing a sense of honesty and fairness. On that message, I won overwhelmingly, and then I got to work. We started investing in my community, lit up the neighborhood with new lighting, turned a blighted parcel into a sparkling new community park, revitalized our rec centers, picked up the trash on our business corridors and throughout our neighborhood, brought youth together with police in partnership. And as we did this work, crime started to tick down and opportunity started to go up. There was only one group that was opposed to the work that we were doing, and that were the special interests who were opposing my work at every turn. They're out by you in Pittsburgh. These are the wayward landlords who don't care about their properties in Allegheny County. They're in Maryland, New York, New Jersey. These are gun manufacturers who allow guns to get in the wrong hands. I've stood up to them every single time and won. We injected $2.5 million into the gun violence task force every year to get illegal guns off the streets. But I just haven't taken on the big battles in my neighborhood. I've done it throughout my city at the state, taking on political power brokers, elites, and special interests. My equation is clear. If you are more interested in padding your own pocket than in taking care of people, as Attorney General, I'm going to come after you. And this has national importance because it's not just local special interests, but with Trump as the likely nominee on the Republican side, he brings all of his special interests to Pennsylvania, threatening our most foundational fundamental rights, abortion access, and the sacred right to vote. We need an attorney general who has the courage, not just to fight, but the courage to win. And I've demonstrated that time and time again through my values, through my work ethic, through my courage. I'm Jared Solomon. I'd be honored to have your support as our next attorney general. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we have time for questions, so you can put your questions in the chat or you can raise your hand.
Feel free to recycle questions you asked other candidates. It's interesting to hear multiple answers. Marty?
So let me, while you're looking for people
We've
who are
got one,
posting
Liz.
questions.
We've
Okay,
got
go
one.
ahead.
Got one
Yeah.
from Marty and one from TK. So Marty, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, Jared, I asked this earlier. One of the challenges of winning an election is fundraising, and I'm just curious as to what your goals are and how you've performed so far to date.
Thanks, Marty, for the question. I brought together a broad coalition, not just through my endorsements, but through my fundraising. My coalition includes UFCW, Pittsburgh firefighters, Philly firefighters, and the statewide firefighters, the most progressive veteran organization in the country, Vote Vets, and many more to come. My fundraising is outpacing the rest of the field. With over $1 million at the end of 2023, we will have the resources to win the primary and then take that coalition and expand upon it in the general election. When we run in the general against Trump and his allies, we need the resources to win, and we need someone who is equipped to do the fundraising necessary to make sure that we get our message out as early as possible in anticipation of that November election. Thanks so much for the question, Marty.
Okay, you're up. Are you maybe muted?
Yeah, here I am. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Yeah. So thanks for your service, my guy. I appreciate you. I learned that you were, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. You were raised just by your mother?
Yeah, single mom, TK,
Uh-huh.
single mom special ed teacher. Yep.
That's awesome, man. So I wanted to ask you to tell us more about some of your community organization and your community advocacy outside of the legislature. And was your upbringing part of why you wanted to be a legislator and tie community, and like what I asked the other gentleman, police enforcement? I seen you done and held a community organization for like 10 plus years or so, doing certain things like partnering police and community together. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
TK, you've done your homework. I'm very impressed, and I appreciate the questions. Yeah, I learned it. You know, it was just my mom and I for the longest time living with my great grandparents, and my mom always taught me, you have a mission, you fight always, and that's the way to prevail. And that is the reason that I began my work in my community. The reason that I decided to run is because I thought our community could do a lot better. And there was a 42-year incumbent who I didn't think was getting the job done. When I won, TK, I took a very expansive view of what safety means in communities. I think it means enforcement, of course, it means investment, and it means protection from special interests. And part of that enforcement equation, I know you got into the relationship between police and our community. I represent the most diverse community in the state of Pennsylvania. Of all the town halls I've done, of all the constituents I've talked to, not one person has said that they want less policing. But what they do tell me all the time is they want a different type of policing. And as Attorney General, I would pledge to you, TK, and everyone, that I would do the work, the retraining work that we need to make sure our police are more responsive to the needs of community. We want police officers with different languages who look like the community that they represent. We want police officers to have sensitivity to mental health issues, to ensure that they get to know faith-based leaders, nonprofits, educators within their area. In order to do that, we really need to take seriously a call for community policing. And that means new investments in our police. It also means a PR campaign, which I would lead, which talks about what it would mean to be a police officer in 2024, not in 1990, not in 2000. That's the way we bring our young people in, with a message that resonates with the next generation who will be policing our neighborhoods.
Thanks, Jared. We have just a minute left, so it'll have to be a short answer, but I want to ask you the same question I've asked other people. What priority would you give to prosecuting white-collar crime?
Hey, if you want someone to prosecute, Liz, white-collar crime, I'm your guy. That's what I did in my professional career. I was a securities and antitrust lawyer. And this is a beautiful thing, because this gets us back to the roots of our Democratic Party, to take on those corporate cheats who aren't interested in helping our communities, but they're interested in suppressing wages, in padding their own pockets, in collusion, vertical and horizontal. And that doesn't help our neighborhoods. These are the opioid manufacturers, the pharmaceutical companies, the hospitals who are suppressing wages. So I would take on these folks time and time again, and I have the skills and know-how to do so. You're muted, Liz.
Thanks so much, Jared. We really appreciate your joining us. We appreciate your answers. I want to remind everybody that you have the links to every candidate's website, and you can follow up with them with more questions. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thanks, Liz. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. And our last candidate is Joe Kahn. Has Joe Kahn joined us yet?
He has.
Yes, good.
Yep.
Because I know he had a fundraiser he was going to step away from to join us. Joe Kahn is our fifth and final speaker for the Pennsylvania Attorney General. Welcome. You have, and just in case you didn't hear, you have 3 minutes to speak, and then you have a total of time of up to 10 minutes with questions. So thank you so much. Joe, can you unmute yourself? And
hi.
There we are. Good.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I am zooming in from Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and I am running to be your next Attorney General to continue for me what's been a 24-year career of keeping people safe from crime and corruption and attacks on our rights. Before I tell you about why I want to do that, if it's okay, I'd like to tell you about why, like you, I'm a Democrat. I am the son of a Pakistani bridge builder who was able to come to this country because when he had his American dream, we didn't have a ban on all Muslims coming into this country, right? We had a president named John F. Kennedy who inspired my dad to come here. I'm also the son of a Catholic nurse who grew up surrounded by mental health and addiction problems in her family. And for that reason, she lost her father when she was 7 years old. And her mom, my grandma, was able to put food on the table because of Social Security, created by a Democratic president named Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And so I got to grow up in Northeast Philadelphia because my parents both had a sense of humor. My dad was Muslim and my mom was Catholic, so they picked a Jewish neighborhood to raise their kids in. And I got to go to great public schools and took my education off with me to Chicago, University of Chicago, where I got my law degree. And as a young man, I was looking for a sense of purpose, a sense of what I should do with this great education, and also this lifetime of always feeling different from everyone else. And I fortunately met a young teacher, a law professor with a very similar background, a Muslim immigrant dad, a Christian American woman. And he helped me understand that always being different from others and having to relate to those with different backgrounds than yours that wasn't going to be a handicap for me as an attorney in the public interest. That was going to be my superpower. I had the benefit of having Barack Obama as my professor and my inspiration as a young person. And with that sense of purpose, I came home to Philadelphia, began my career as a prosecutor, keeping people safe from child abuse and sexual assault and domestic violence, connecting to some of the most vulnerable and marginalized victims of our society. Before I went off to the United States Attorney's Office and became a federal prosecutor for 10 years, taking on some of the most difficult white-collar and complex cases you can imagine, rooting out political corruption throughout Eastern Pennsylvania, and also coming to understand that some of the real threats we faced were corporate corruption. When I switched gears and became a civil attorney and started fighting for justice in a different way, one of the first things I did was go after the opioid companies who saw a heroin epidemic across Pennsylvania and across the country, and saw that as an opportunity to make a quick buck. And when I came here to Bucks County, here in Pennsylvania as the county solicitor, I brought the first ever county lawsuit against TikTok and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. When I found out that they had targeted kids like mine, kids who I had reluctantly put on screens during the pandemic, because they saw a way to make a quick buck instead of being good corporate citizens. And as dangerous as crime and corruption are to all Pennsylvanians, it's the work that I have done as Bucks County Solicitor, defending our rights, that is the most important thing that our next Attorney General is going to have to do. You know, I was the first and only county solicitor in Pennsylvania to stand up for access to the abortion pill when that came before the U.S. Supreme Court. And I was targeted by the Republicans for that. I would do it all over again. See, that Catholic nurse I told you about, my mom, she told me about her early days working in the ER, caring for women who had been abused and hurt, and also women who didn't have access to safe abortion care. And I remember this, I'll never forget the story she told me when I was about 7 or 8 years old about the young mom she tried to save and couldn't because she had lacked access to safe abortions. And that is something that we cannot allow to happen, and I will never allow to happen. It's the same reason that I didn't flinch when I became the only county solicitor to enforce our Environmental Rights Amendment here in Pennsylvania. And I've done it not just once, but twice. And it's why in 2020, no matter how relentless these attacks came, I stopped Donald Trump and his goons from throwing out our right to vote, throwing out people from the voting rolls, and I fought them all the way to the United States Supreme Court, and I won. I was recognized. Yep.
Joe, what I'd like to do is move on to questions.
Sure,
And it takes people a minute or two to get their questions together. So if you have a suggestion, I know you weren't really quite finished, about a particular topic you want people to ask you about, you can throw that out now while they're getting their questions ready.
You can ask anything you like.
Anything. We've got a question queued up here. So TK, take it away.
Hey, how you doing, Mr. Khan?
TK, nice to meet you.
Yeah, likewise, buddy. Thank you. So I got a question. Here in Western PA, we got some EPA violations, environmental issues with U.S. Steel Corporation, as well as up in Beaver County, we got the Monaca plant that's been faced in 2022 with some hazardous pollution and permit violations. Now, what makes you stand apart, and how would you address some of those issues that we're having in Western PA, and if we're honest, all across the globe?
Well, I think there's a lot that sets me apart. One of the things, as I said, I'm the only county solicitor who's ever enforced our Environmental Rights Amendment. If you go to my website, I think you'll see I'm the only candidate who's talking about reimagining the Attorney General's office to go beyond environmental crimes and think more broadly about environmental justice. It's the reason that I want to have the ability to run this office. It's an incredible place, just like the U.S. Attorney's Office where I served for 10 years. You have criminal and civil powers, and we have to be making sure that we're focusing on not how many people we put in jail. And I'm not going to flinch, in terms of putting wrongdoers in prison. But it's not about the size of a civil judgment or the number of convictions. It's about making communities safe and having environmental justice. So whether you're talking about a cracker plant up in Western Pennsylvania, or you're talking about a landfill in Lackawanna County, right? We have to make sure that the Attorney General in Pennsylvania sees the Environmental Rights Amendment as a superpower that makes this their business. Now, one of the common denominators, in my opinion, TK, between what you're talking about out in Beaver County and what I see in other parts of Pennsylvania has been a lack of adequate enforcement by the Department of Environmental Protection. And what we need, in my opinion, from our next Attorney General is, number one, somebody with the know-how, right, to use the power of that office to force government actors to do their job. And it doesn't matter to me if the governor is a Democrat or a Republican. It doesn't matter to me if the reason that the DEP is not doing their job is because they don't have the money, they don't have the staff, or they just don't want to do the right thing. I have a responsibility to the people in those communities to protect their health and protect their environment. And I understand how to use the Attorney General's office to take legal action to force the right thing. You know, I can tell you that in Harrisburg, where my brother Tariq, the first ever Pakistani American to get elected to our General Assembly, that behind closed doors, there are Republican legislators who secretly are happy that the courts have forced them to finally fund our schools, because smart lawyers with the right vision and the right values work with stakeholders to go to court, put the system on trial, and force the government to do its job. And I think that the common denominator here, TK, is when we can't get the result by suing a company or intervening some other way, is to make sure that one way or another, DEP does its job and has the tools it needs to protect the people of Pennsylvania.
Let me ask the question I've been asking all the candidates. What priority would you make prosecuting white collar crime?
Yeah, I mean, look, that's what I did for a very significant part of my career. And when you say white collar, just so we're using the same terms, are you talking specific about financial crimes, political corruption? Because that means different things to different people.
Yes.
All of the above. So yes, look, it's particularly important. I think I'm uniquely qualified in this area. If you are familiar with any of the work I did in Allentown and Reading, you know that I wasn't afraid to go after members of my own party when the mayors of those cities gave the Democratic Party a bad name for looking out for themselves instead of those who need government the most. So I understand the stakes. I think more broadly than white collar or blue collar, because ultimately what I want to make sure that we have is an Attorney General's office that is driven by the right values. And so when you have police officers who are corrupt, I don't know if that's white collar, blue collar, but it's corruption, and we need to hold them to the right standard the same way we hold corrupt politicians to the right standard. But again, I am most concerned for looking out for the people of Pennsylvania. So when I had the power to sue TikTok and Facebook as a solicitor, I did that and never been done before. And I think also if I had the power as a prosecutor to put people in jail for breaking the law, I would do that as well. But ultimately, I think whether we think about it as a crime or as civil enforcement, for me, the common denominator is justice, right? And I think that the people of Pennsylvania need someone who is going to take on issues and make their lives better. There is not a long line of politicians, who are raising their hand to take ownership for the housing crisis. I want to use the Attorney General's office to take on issues like that have never been addressed in a holistic way, and to have people hold me accountable if I don't do what I say I'm going to do.
Thank you so much, Joe. Time is up. We
Okay.
really appreciate your stepping away from your fundraiser because we know how important that is to a campaign.
Thank you. It's not a fundraiser. It's actually it's a petition party. So I know all of you are involved in that as well. But we're saying thank you to our supporters with some pizza.
We're doing a petition party here on Saturday morning. So we'll have your petitions along with other candidates for people to sign.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for all you do. I once was a Democratic committee person, so I know how important the work is. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Joe. And with Joe, that wraps up our 5 Democratic candidates for the Pennsylvania Attorney General position. We really want to thank all of the candidates for participating tonight so we could get to know you better. And I want to remind everybody that you have the websites for candidates, and you have there are links on there if you have questions that didn't get addressed tonight that you want to ask them. I want to remind everybody that to stop over on Saturday morning between 10 and 1 for bagels and petitions. And also next Wednesday, a week from tonight, we're going to hear the Pennsylvania Treasurer candidates, the Pennsylvania Auditor General candidates, and Pennsylvania House District 34. And that one has a competitive race. And so I think people will be interested in hearing all of those candidates. So thank you. Anything else for the good of the order before we end the meeting? We did a pretty good job of trying to stay on time. We had a goal of making the meeting be just an hour and 15 minutes, and we're just 10 minutes over that. So thanks again, everybody. I hope to see you Saturday morning. And for sure, I'll see you next Wednesday. Thanks, Marvin. Okay. And Marie, you can stop the recording now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Night, everybody.
Bye.